Gabe, it is Tuesday. We're coming off a long weekend. I shouldn't say it's Tuesday, actually, because this publishes on Wednesday, but coming out of a long weekend, Gabe, what did you do this weekend? Anything fun or exciting that might make me jealous?
It probably isn't going to make you jealous, but I'd say the most interesting thing I did this weekend was camping with my son. And I'm going to use camping in my air quotes here because he likes to camp in his room, which basically means that we just set up a tent in his room and then sleep in there. And as a man in my 40s, I am getting way too old to sleep on the floor. So I get way too little sleep when we do this, but he really enjoys it. And it's a nice, kind of father son bonding thing. So I
You
suck
said,
it up and just realize that I'm going to have a crap night's sleep.
you said camping, and I totally expected you to be like, "Oh, I was out and out in the wild with my tent and sleeping bag." But um, okay.
Nah,
to
not that crazy. No,
Yeah, to be fair, I used to like
we just do it
camping.
inside. We
I used to like camping with my friends, and I used to go out a lot now. But like even now at my at my old age now, even now I'm just like not really my thing. I'm not opposed to going actually camping, but it's cold out. It's snowed today, so I can't.
yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole separate problem. But yeah, my wife's definitely not going camping. I'm not a huge camper either, so it's roughing it. We're not a huge roughing it guy, but I definitely like being in the outdoors. I just don't want to sleep on the ground. But we
And that
did
was,
sleep in the backyard once. We did set up the tent in the backyard, and that was really bad because you have no idea how loud it is in your neighborhood until you sleep outside and realize all of the insane noises that happen during the middle of the night. And my son got no sleep that night.
I don't
Just
want
none.
to
It
I
was
don't want to brag, but I live in the mountains, Gabe. We don't have any of that kind of sound.
I had no idea. I mean, it's not like I live in, a thriving metropolis, but it's you don't realize how much sound there is just happening, out in the world until you sleep in your backyard and hear it all.
Well, I didn't go camping this weekend, Gabe, but I did do quite a bit of hiking. It was nice on
Nice.
Friday and Saturday, and then it kind of rained and snowed. And here I am, midway through the week. But uh, tomorrow is June, so I'm really hoping we get some sunshine here. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking at vacation destinations a little sooner than I'd like to.
Or just maybe moving destinations, Zach.
You know, I joke about moving all the time, but if anyone listening to this podcast has a good deal on a house in Hawaii, drop us a message and let's talk because I feel like that would solve all of my problems.
It's a really nice time difference too, because it's 3 hours off of the West Coast. So yeah, it's just yeah, Hawaii's
Every,
pretty great. I
every
should
time I
definitely
visit
go for a
Hawaii,
Hawaii
like
trip right now.
it's 3 a.m. and everyone in my family's up because we don't sleep in much, here to begin with. So once we go back 3 hours, everyone's up and ready to go. So I feel like it would take some time to get used to.
Yeah, I'll tell one more quick kid story and then we can get on to our actual topic today. But that was one thing I did not think about when we took my son to Hawaii is the time difference in trying to get him to sleep because he's an early riser anyway. That kid is always up at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and getting woken up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning when you're on vacation is not what you want. So we did get some epic naps in though in the afternoon because both of us were super tired, especially after running around the beach and swimming all day. So, at least when you're on vacation, you can take a nice nap
Oh man, well now I kind of want to go on vacation, but I'll save that for when it's
just for the
actually
naps.
yeah, just for the I just want to nap in peace someplace. But Gabe, one of the big things I see a lot of people talking about and people have talked to us about is advertising on Facebook. And we did one episode on Facebook specifically. We talked quite a bit about how to build those ads and whatnot. But one thing we didn't talk about is the actual detailed targeting. And for those who don't know what that is, that's really advertising to people based on interest, behaviors, activity on Facebook itself. So really with Facebook, any as the consumer, any information I give Facebook, they can in turn use to advertise to me directly. So one thing I wanted to ask you today, Gabe, before we get too deep, is looking at your Facebook, what kind of life events have you added?
I have never put a life event on Facebook. but that's because I think I've shared this before, but my Facebook is super boring and it's really only used for work related stuff. Whether it's, engaging with my clients or seeing, what's going on from an actual advertising perspective out there. So I was thinking about this as we were preparing for this podcast. I think the only things I've liked on Facebook are my customers' pages. And I think that's probably it, which is really sad and probably means I'm not getting very good targeted ads on Facebook, but I guess that's just a cross I'm going to have to bear.
Very specific interest. That's what Facebook is seeing on you. Gabe, you're going to be one of those people, I feel like,
yes,
that
this is true.
Someday you're going to finally update your relationship status on Facebook, and it's going to be like, that day. So it's going to say Gabe Peterson is now married on, June 1, 2022. And people are going to be like, oh, congrats, And I see that way too much. And I always think it's the funniest thing because you'll have couples who've been married for 10, 20 plus years, and it's suddenly, oh, they're married, on Facebook. It's Facebook official. But I'll keep an eye out because I'm very interested to see, what happens in your life, what kind of life events you've got coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really weird to say that I'm married now after, being with my wife for we've been together for 20 something years. So it does feel like it would be very bizarre to share that as a life event.
Well, as long as you don't say it's complicated, because I'm convinced, and we've had this discussion, I know, but I am convinced, we had this discussion on LinkedIn of all places, but I'm convinced that saying it's complicated on Facebook is just asking for trouble, that's the last thing anyone needs to know. But there's a reason that option exists on Facebook, and we'll get into that in a minute. But one more question for you, Gabe, is you mentioned you like a lot of your customer pages on Facebook, something I do as well. Is there any page that you like that you haven't mentioned yet? Any non-customer pages that you interact with?
I don't think that there is, actually. Trying to think if there's any non-customer none of my customer pages that I've actually interacted with on Facebook.
And to be fair,
my sister's company, the one that she works for, but now, but you got to tell me which ones you're interacting with.
Well, and that was the thing I was going to bring up next is I looked at a list of companies today, and part of this is I don't use Facebook that much. A lot of my activities on Instagram and so on, but a lot of my pages, it was like college sports teams. Peloton was one, a few national parks just because I do a lot of hiking, and then restaurants too. So there's really not too much. And then there's a few local city pages just to stay up in the news, but I really don't like too much. So one of the ads I commonly see though on Facebook is really anything related to hiking, really anything related to outdoors, and looking at the information I've given Facebook, I'm not surprised at all. I think if someone was doing detailed targeting on some kind of outdoor recreation, I would definitely be included in that list. So I think that's pretty interesting. But the reason I want to bring this up, though, is because liking these pages, interacting with these pages tells Facebook that we are interested in a particular subject. So again, mine, hiking, and so on. I'm surprised, Gabe, you're not getting more broadband ads or whatever you may be.
I feel like I should be getting nothing but broadband service provider ads.
Yeah, man, you've upgraded your connection to the 1 gig, but they still want you to upgrade. But with detailed targeting, so the big intro here is, again, as consumers, the information that we pass on to Facebook can then be used to advertisers to promote different products and services to us. So Facebook looks at a couple different things. The ads people click, so just those ads you see every day. The pages you engage with, that's what Gabe and I were just talking about. And there's also some pretty cool things such as the device you actually use Facebook from, the connection it has. Are you on LTE, 5G, Wi-Fi, whatever that may be? And then there's also the demographics, age, gender, location, and so on. And then there's life events too. And that's what we're going to get into in a little bit, is how you can use all of this data that people give Facebook to really optimize your ads and promote your business. So the big one is interest. And this is one that, it's great because when you use this, you don't have to guess who your audience is. You can come out and say, hey, I'm looking for someone who has liked a specific page. They've engaged with a specific video, photo, content, whatever that may be. So I'm looking for those people. And you tell Facebook that that's who you're looking for. And Facebook will then say, hey, here's the audience. Here's the group of people that matches that criteria.
Yeah, it's kind of insane how many options there are. And I know that's one thing we want to talk about too, Zach, is, where this stuff is actually physically located when you're building an ad. One of the things that we've kind of noticed is that it is a little bit buried. And I think that's a big reason why people don't probably use it as much as they should. But all of this is under the audience section of Facebook Ads Manager when you're going and building an ad. So whether you're advertising on Facebook proper, whether you're advertising on Instagram or advertising on their kind of broader audience network, all of this is done in that same Facebook Ads Manager location under the audience portion. And I've certainly seen a lot of customers using, my customers using things like age bracketing, like, male versus female. Certainly a lot of folks using geographic targeting, whether it be zip codes or maybe even doing something where they're actually, drawing polygons or, shapes around a specific location that they want to serve ads to. But underneath all of that, there's all of this detailed targeting. And I don't know about you, but I was really surprised at just how many options are under that detailed targeting. It's a big list, man.
Oh, if it exists on the internet, I'm quite confident it exists in that list. I mean, one of the things we talked about was, hey, with the pandemic happening and a lot of people working from home now, could you advertise to work from home or specifically? And you can. That's an option. You can look up telecommuters on that list, and then you can also add some additional criteria. But that list has so many different interests in it, and it's not just interests too. We'll go into the behaviors and life events in a few minutes. But with the interest too, and like I mentioned, you don't have to guess who your audience is. You can tell Facebook, I'm looking for people who have expressed interest in these pages or this topic, and Facebook will take it from there. So I think it's a really powerful tool to use, and not only powerful, but like you mentioned, Gabe, it's kind of hidden, but I think it's a little underutilized too, and I think there's just so much you can do with it.
For sure. And I think one of the other reasons that it probably doesn't get utilized as much is because when you do click on that list and you see all of the options, it becomes a little bit paralyzing where you go, oh my goodness, what should I be choosing here? And that I can certainly understand that, being a little bit overwhelming when you're looking at just the amount of information that's there. That's where the search can be your best friend, just being able to just go in there and quickly kind of search for keywords and things like that to try and identify some of these interests or behaviors or, whatever it may be under that detailed targeting list. So, if you're concerned about just clicking and scrolling through the big gigantic list, I could certainly understand where that would trip some people up. But if you just want to go in there and just kind of search and just see what type of information is out there, I think that's a great way to get started.
And Gabe, one thing I want to point out is we're definitely talking about Facebook today, and we can talk about this in another episode too, but it's very similar to the Google advertising too, looking up specific interests too. So when you're building these ads on Facebook and you're looking for these specific audiences, definitely, if you want, build that Google ad too, and you can use the same exact, interest behaviors and life events and so on. Google has more data than we know on us. So definitely, make sure that when you're looking at detailed targeting, it doesn't have to be just on Facebook.
Yeah, totally agree. And you had sent me that list of the Google list of all of the different detailed targeting options previously, and I just was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Oh man, I looked at that list
so much
and
information on us out there. It's wild.
I wish Facebook, and maybe they do, but I wish Facebook had a list like that, because on mine it guessed my age bracket correctly. It said, hey, you might be interested in EVs, and I was like, oh man, like I can't even count the amount of time I've Googled Tesla and Rivian, and now the new DeLorean that's coming out too. I don't know if you saw that. This weekend.
That thing looks pretty sick.
It goes. I thought this was funny on their website. 0 to 88 miles per hour in like 4.9 seconds, which I thought was a funny
nice.
call out to.
88.
Yeah.
That's good.
Call out to the Back to the Future movie, which I did in fact see. So before we go down that path.
That is a classic. I actually just rewatched that probably like a year ago. I hadn't seen it in quite some time, and that is a really good movie. I'm looking forward to showing my kids that at some point. But yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but since you brought up the DeLorean thing, man, that is such a perfect. You're seeing it now with like Top Gun, right? I mean, everybody's talking about Top Gun, and all these conversations about that, and it's nostalgia, man. Like all of, I was a kid when Top Gun came out. Now I have kids. Now I want to expose my kids to the things that I was excited about when I was a kid. So I feel like the DeLorean is like the perfect encapsulation of that too, where it's just hitting us perfectly at the time when this age group who grew up on Back to the Future is now nostalgic for those times and is now going to go. I don't even know. Have they said how much the DeLorean is? I did not see that part.
I want to say it was, I don't know if I should say this, it's going to bring everyone down, but I want to say it was 150, 160,000.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I figured it wasn't. I was going to say 100,000. So
realistically looking at this, Gabe, you could probably buy a small house. Well, I mean, probably not a small house now, but small house versus this pretty cool EV. Why not buy the EV, right? Don't take that advice. That's just terrible advice.
That's a down payment. That's a down payment for a small house in California. So, if you're going to do the down payment for the house or the fancy DeLorean, might as well just go with the DeLorean.
Hey, if you're going to go in for something, go all out. But the reason I bring this up too is, I've seen this on Facebook now. I've clicked on things. I've visited their website and all of this from Facebook. And that's what Facebook calls a behavior. They recognize the content I'm now consuming. They've seen I've clicked on this DeLorean ad. They may not know that I'm actually not interested in, putting a small down payment on one, but they can tell all that data, and they can even see what device and what browser I'm using too. So, I see this a lot with, maybe someone's using an old iPhone. That's a prime example to upgrade someone's iPhone. So you can use that behavior from Facebook as well and run campaigns specific to them.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways to leverage this. I know we're going to talk about the life events thing as well, but just being able to drill down into those targeted demographics, really narrow that audience down. I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but one of my favorite ones that I think is really underutilized is the parent sections. So they actually break parents down even into parents of newborns, parents of toddlers, parents of teenagers, parents of preteens. There's really a lot of detail under there. So if you're trying to sell a parental control solution, or if you're just trying to sell a service that is going to help parents in some way, which God knows we need all the help we can get, I see that as a great way to use those, detailed demographics to target a specific group of people.
Oh yeah, you bet. I'm not interested in that at all. So if you're doing an ad, make sure you detail me out of there. But Gabe, that's a great introduction to life events.
Should we talk about exclusion, Zach?
Yes, let's talk about exclusion. If you're advertising to parents, please leave me out. But jokes aside, life events is that last component here, and that's super powerful to use on Facebook. And just about everyone I know, except for Gabe, post a life event on Facebook, whether it's you moved, you got a new job, you're turning, I don't know, 26 tomorrow, whatever that event may be. If you just got engaged, that's one I see too. Newlyweds, Gabe, you just mentioned, but you can advertise to people on all of that, which I think is pretty funny, because a lot of people go on and they post these life events, and I would bet 90%, 99% don't realize what information they're actually empowering us to use.
No, I'm sure they don't. I mean, I think most people are not even thinking about that aspect of it. Maybe, I think people have become maybe a little bit more aware, but maybe that's just the circles we run in, Zach.
There's just the assumption that Facebook is doing something.
Yeah, exactly. There's just the assumption that they're going to be evil with your data. And so you're just like, whatever. But it does become an incredibly powerful thing. We've talked about the moving one before. I think that's a great one, especially for broadband service providers to lean into hey, I've just recently moved. Well, that's a great group to go target for, a broadband service. The other one
that point though, Gabe, just to sneak this in here, one of my friends just moved across the country, and after he got an apartment, the very first conversation we had was, oh, hey, who's your ISP, or who are you getting internet from? So I thought that was pretty funny, because not only can we, have those conversations and, place your priorities wherever that may be, but we can actually look now on Facebook and say, hey, John Doe just moved. Maybe he's going to be looking for a new broadband provider, and we can build that detailed targeting right there.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one where, we talk about building these ads and all of that. And, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to, actually get the ad built and get the creative out together, put together and out there in the world and all that. But that's one that just feels like you could almost always have running, and maybe you need to refresh the creative from time to time. But, if you've got a detailed target that's just focused on people who are moving, I feel like that's one that should just be always up and running in your ads manager. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I just feel like that's one that should just be always up and running. What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, someone's always moving.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Somebody's always
audience,
moving, right?
the audience really isn't going to change too much. As soon as you put that life event on, saying, "Hey, I just moved to Maui," that ISP should definitely be in there already proactively saying, "Hey, looking for internet, sign up today and here's a deal, discount, whatever that may be." But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those ones that it's build it once and I don't want to say forget about it. You should always be back and looking at your ad analytics and everything. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's really a build it and kind of forget it. That audience won't change too much. Maybe modify it based on the results you see. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fantastic example.
And I feel like a lot of times people, are so focused on these like bespoke campaigns. Okay, I have a campaign, I need to do this, and I'm going to set this ad set up on Facebook, and I'm going to run it, and then it's going to end, and then it's over, and then I'm going to move on to the next thing. But there isn't enough of that just ongoing stuff. And one of the things that I've noticed, I've been doing a bunch of competitive research for kind of the larger broadband service providers and looking at their Facebook ads libraries. And one of the things that is just very apparent from looking at their Facebook ad libraries is they constantly have ads running. And yes, they have much larger marketing budgets. Yes, they have many more people who are working on it, but they've just got these kind of evergreen ads that are constantly running, all of the time, because they always want to be in front of, in front of potential subscribers, so that when that time comes that they need to act, they're kind of the first person to think about. There's a term for this, and I just read about it. I can't remember if it was earlier today or over the weekend, and I'll bring it back to the podcast next time. But there's an article I was reading. It was talking about, why does Coca-Cola advertise? Because they're a huge company and they spend a ridiculous amount of money on advertising, but they do it because they want, when you go to get a soda, them to be the first one that comes to mind. That's why they spend so much money on advertising. So anyway, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but
I feel like the Coca-Cola is a good
that
example though, because there's a few companies that do that, but and I feel like this is a very regional thing too. But if I'm getting a soda at a restaurant or something, I'm not too concerned over what they have, or I'm not going to be thinking of, well, what was the last ad I want. I'm typically not affected by that kind of thing. But one thing I did want to call out was I saw this on Twitter just this weekend too. But of all companies, Tesla is another one that really has that brand recognition, so they don't do much, if any, advertising. I've never seen a Tesla ad, but people kind of just gravitate to that. But I think that would be another great one for detailed targeting, looking at people's interest. You can do everything from tech savvy early adopters, if you're interested in that kind of thing. Maybe the latest iPhone comes out. That might be a better example. You can actually tell Facebook, "Hey, I'm looking for my early adopters of tech," and that would be a prime example for Apple to use, as they know someone's going to be out there looking for that. But there's just so much out there, and whether or not you're using it now, I definitely think people should be using it. Back to one of the comments I made earlier, though. Relationship status is another one. The it's complicated. That's also one that I think that can be used by companies too. Maybe not so much BSPs, but just everything from newlyweds too. Maybe someone's engaged. Facebook can target them specifically. Maybe you have to buy them a gift, or maybe their wedding's coming up. But you can use all of that data too to really dial down your audiences. And Gabe, I think you had a good example you were going to walk us through.
Yeah, I want to circle back to something you just said, and then I'll walk through. I don't know that I'll call it a good example, but I think it's a reasonable
example.
But one thing you just mentioned there an example. One thing you mentioned there is the friends of people who have expressed specific life events. So, in theory, if you're unlike me, who's a weirdo who doesn't really use Facebook for what it's intended for, but if you're like Zach, you have Facebook friends, and those Facebook friends have life events like getting married and having kids and doing all of these other things. So you can actually use that as well to say, hey, I'm going to serve up ads to the friends of the person who just announced that they're getting married about, as you said, buying them a gift for the wedding, or, maybe buying them a gift for their baby if they just had a kid or whatever. Right. So it's even extends out beyond that person who specifically said, hey, I'm putting my hand up and I'm the person who's getting married or just had a child, but actually extends out to their extended friend group as well, of people that they're connected with on social media.
I feel like I see too much of those life events these days.
Well, you're kind of at that part of your life, bud, where, your friends are probably getting married and they're having kids, and, that's just how it goes.
Not so much having kids, but it's definitely like the whole marriage thing, and cross that bridge when the time comes. Nobody's listening to this podcast that could incriminate me, so I can say whatever I want here, but not a huge concern right now. That's going to come back and haunt me in 2 weeks. No, I don't know.
It probably will. I just really hope that we're still doing this podcast when you do get engaged and get married and have children, because it's just gonna tickle me so much.
We're gonna have to have like an episode when the time comes of just going back and looking at the old game tape and seeing everything we said. I feel like that comment is gonna come back to haunt me, but having a good time for now.
I feel like we should do an episode of just me trying to freak you out about things that have happened with my children.
Okay,
the stuff that nobody tells you before you become a parent, and that you realize as you're a parent.
This is a total little sidetrack here, but I was laughing. I actually told some of my friends about this weekend, but last week, we have a lot of people on the team here with families and kids, and it was one day, and it must have been like the last day of school or something. It's the season for that. But everyone was sending their kids photos and talking about, so-and-so. And I was just sitting here like, should I send like a photo of like a cat or a dog or something? Like I've got nothing to contribute to this conversation. And I don't have a cat or a dog, but one of my friends was like, oh, you can send a picture of my cat. And I was like, honestly, that'd be just too much.
I feel like that's just sad now, but
oh man. Well, detailed targeting, cat owners. Like I don't own a cat. I don't want a cat, but
I'll bet there is probably detailed targeting for pet owners.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole category on pets.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Well, people spend an insane amount of money on their pets, probably more than some do on their kids.
Not my thing, but
nor mine, but hey, it's out there. So speaking of parental targeting, I did want to use this as an example, because I think this is an idea that we've been kind of kicking around internally, and I think it'd be a cool thing for broadband service providers specifically. So we were talking about this detailed targeting of parents, and as a parent, the biggest thing that nobody told me or tells you about being a parent before you have kids is how little time you have for yourself once that child is born. Like all of a sudden, everything just kind of revolves around the kid, right? So that'll be something fun for you to look forward to.
I'm taking notes up here, Gabe.
Yeah, please do. This is just great parent knowledge right here. But as a parent, you're just busy. You got work, you got life, you got your kids, you got all that stuff, and so you want things to just be easy. And as I mentioned, Facebook has very detailed targeting where you can target parents who have kids of certain ages. And my kids are a little bit young for their own screens. They don't have their own tablets, they don't have their own phones, but I'm not that far away from that. And one of the things that frankly makes me concerned longer term is how much time my kids are spending with technology, because it is just so pervasive in our lives. So we were kind of kicking around this idea of a parent package, where if you're a broadband service provider and you're offering parental controls, if you're offering managed Wi-Fi solutions, if you're offering really fast broadband speeds, rather than trying to sell somebody a 1 gig service with managed Wi-Fi, and maybe you're selling enhanced parental controls for some additional fee, what you could do is you could use Facebook to do detailed targeting of parents, and you could choose even which parental groups you wanted. If you wanted to, leave off the newborn kids because, they're not necessarily worried about, parental controls probably for that group, you could certainly do that. Focus on, teenagers and preteens and, maybe kids are even a little bit younger than that who have a lot of technology now. You could target them on Facebook. You could drive them back to a landing page that talks to them about your parent package. And that package is really fast internet. It's ultimate managed Wi-Fi. It's enhanced parental controls, and maybe it's something else. I don't know. Maybe it's a camera system, just throwing that in there as well. So you can see when your kids are coming home from school. But you just bundle all of this together and just make it easy for people to buy it. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do this with a parental package. I also think you could do it with a gaming package. Zach, I don't know. I know there are some gaming options in the detailed targeting as well. Did you dig into those much while you were looking at those details?
I looked at it a little bit. I didn't do too much on gaming, but there's definitely segments in Facebook around gamers and whatnot. I think it's pretty interesting though that, you bring up a great point is targeting them specifically. There's an opportunity not just for parents in this case, but different personas as well. Gaming, I mentioned work from home at the beginning, but you can really break these down into different categories. And I think that's just a fantastic way to look at it too.
Yeah. And just using, kind of having this through line through the entire ad, right? So, using a gaming one as an example, I think I saw console gamers as one of the options of detailed targeting in Facebook. So you could say, target people who are console gamers, drive them back to a landing page that talks all about gaming, make that a little bit more tech savvy because typically gamers are going to be a little bit more into technology, make sure that they understand that your 1 gig service is both super fast downstream and upstream speeds, less lag, those sorts of things. And again, just make it easy for them to purchase, not giving them a lot of options, but really giving them the solution that they need and making it, again, easy for people to just buy that. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to think about this a bit differently and use that Facebook detailed targeting to drive people back to specific pages that are relevant for them based on the things that we know are going on in their life.
Oh, you bet. And one thing I mentioned at the beginning too, Gabe, was with detailed targeting, you don't have to guess who your audience is. You don't have to do these blanket ad campaigns and just hit everyone, You can do multiple campaigns, maybe with lower budgets just because it's more specific, but you can specifically target these people based on, gaming. If I want to get people to upgrade, maybe I'll run a gaming ad. If I know they have families, maybe I'll, focus the messaging on family. It's so much better than doing just a blanket campaign that says upgrade and get the best connection. Like that's meaningless to me, but if I'm a gamer now and I can see, I can, get these benefits if I upgrade or, this experience package, whatever that may be, I think that's way more valuable than just a blanket message that just hits everyone and hopes for the best.
Well, I'm not going to argue against you with, detailed marketing and detailed targeting, right? It's kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis, but I feel like people have come to just expect that at this point, because Facebook has so much information on us, because Google has so much information on us, and because the ads that target us have continued to get better and better over time, I feel like there is somewhat of an expectation that people expect that their advertising experience is going to be a little bit more personalized to them. At least, again, maybe that's just sort of my weird little bubble that we live and work in.
Oh, but, man. Well, I'm trying to think, Gabe. I'm trying to think of what is the last ad on Facebook that I saw that was probably personalized to me, and I just don't remember ads that well, unless it's a really good ad. And then I screenshot it and share it with everyone. But I just can't even remember what would the last thing be that was, likely targeted to me.
I think I mentioned this. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you or not, actually, now that I'm saying it, but my sister works in marketing for a baby food company, and I'm on their mailing list because I like to see what they're doing from an advertising perspective. And so they have my email, and what they did is they uploaded a custom audience, a custom list into YouTube to target people with YouTube video ads. And so I feel like I was texting with her the other day saying that, hey, all I'm seeing on my YouTube now is, ads from your company because you guys are doing this custom audience targeting on YouTube. And that, that's a perfect example of a very personalized ad to me because I'm part of their email list. And so they're serving up those pre-roll YouTube ads to me on a regular basis as well. So, even outside of Facebook and some of the other things that we talked about, today we kind of touched on Google a bit, but that's another great opportunity to, be a bit more targeted with your ads.
I guess one thing I have seen on my Facebook feed specifically is a lot of Topgolf ads. And it's funny because like, that's something I'm, very much interested. I joke about, going to Topgolf all the time, in Las Vegas with the team last year, we went to Topgolf. It's something like my friends and I do, but even like this past weekend, I saw a Facebook ad on Topgolf because they changed it. So they basically changed the reservation system. And this is just me plugging Topgolf now. They changed the reservation system so you can use your phone app to basically check in on a walk-in time. So you don't have to like show up and be like, oh, it's, an hour wait. You can do it all from your phone and then just show up. Anyway, I was trying to get my friends to go to Topgolf this coming weekend just because school's out, people have time. A lot of my friends are, teaching and whatnot. So they don't have the freedom that we do, Gabe. But I feel like I'm going to be seeing a lot of Topgolf ads now because I spent quite a bit of time, I engaged with that ad. I clicked on it. I was checking out what the new feature was. I've certainly Googled Topgolf. I've looked them up on Facebook. So I feel like over the next week, we might see a little bit of an increase in Topgolf ads.
I think you're going to get hammered with Topgolf ads. Yes.
And honestly, I'm not complaining, it's one of those things I like doing. I don't know if you've ever been to Topgolf, Gabe, but if not, we can drag the team to Topgolf.
I actually haven't. I have not, but I would love to go do that. So we need to go do that sometime. It's a date.
Every time I'm around Denver, they have one in Centennial, then one closer to Loveland. But my friends and I, we'd go to the one in Loveland, and then the time on our bay would expire, and we would drive the 20 minutes to the one in Centennial and get a walk-in bay. So we've definitely put ourselves on an audience list for Topgolf.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, man. These are the things that, before you have kids, you got a lot more free time to do. So, soak it in while you can, bud.
After this conversation, I'm definitely going to be, living it up a little bit, going to Topgolf every day.
Yeah, do it.
That would just be trouble. Well, Gabe, that's enough about me talking about Topgolf, and certainly enough about you talking about how much time your kids, I was going to say suck out of your life, but that just felt wrong.
So, it sounds so bad.
It sounds so mean.
They're wonderful
oh,
kids.
Man. I'm not going to cut that out of the podcast. We're pretty honest here.
No,
but
please leave that in. No, like I said, my kids are wonderful. I love them so much. But, I'm just saying, man, my life is very different now than it was 10 years ago. So, this is something that you're going to go through hopefully at some point in your life too. It's a wonderful
when that decade comes, I'll let you know. We can come back and review some of that game tape.
I will be reviewing your life events.
Oh man. Yeah. Go on. Yeah. Gabe, come on, hop on Facebook and give us some life events I'm definitely going to log in tonight and see what life events you can add. If you go to your timeline, there's a big button that says life events. Obviously relationship status is one, moving and so on, but I'm really curious now to see what are the rest of my friends put on Facebook, because I think I've put my job and moving to a new town and just stuff like that. But I'm really curious to see what other people, Gabe excluded, put on Facebook. Otherwise, thanks for joining us today. I really enjoyed this discussion on Facebook and detailed targeting. I know Gabe did as well. We've been talking about this one for quite some time. But don't forget to give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. If you'd like, you can now subscribe to us on YouTube to catch the latest video podcast. And speaking of video podcasts, Spotify, if you have Spotify, the video podcast is published every Wednesday on Spotify, and every other podcast app is just audio right now. Otherwise, feel free to connect with both Gabe and myself on LinkedIn or visit our website to send us a message. And that's all we had for this week, but we'll talk soon.